And now, from the CFTK TV studios, this is Northwest Connections with your host, Robert Pictou.
Hey, welcome to Northwest Connections. I'm your host, Robert Pictou. Our show today comes to you from the traditional and unceded territory of the Tsimshian people. Economic reconciliation involves tackling historical wrongs and overcoming systematic obstacles that guarantee Indigenous peoples can access economic opportunities, resources, and prosperity on an equal footing. The goal is to foster robust, self-reliant Indigenous economies while also contributing to a more inclusive and thriving economy for everyone. On today's Northwest Connections, we're bringing you highlights of our recent Nation2Nation panel discussion, Reconciliation in Action.
You know, given the historic nature, and that was my feeling too, Rob. Related to like how is this just now happening? But having some experience in dealing with Canadian securities law on behalf of clients, Canadian securities law doesn't even know what a First Nation is. Like there's no reference to any of it in any of those laws and regulations. One of the most important elements of this in terms of it, going beyond nations royalty and others looking at, similar opportunities. Have you guys put some thought into, and I imagine you have, and maybe you can tell everybody about how this is going to be documented. How's this journey documented? Because this is like I say, this this will be a legendary story in the history of Canada. It's that big of a deal, and somebody says, "Oh, geez, it's like just trading stocks and stuff." No, this is game changer stuff. This is how all of us as a country move forward. This is the future of Canadian development.
Well, part of what we do a lot of is since we are a public company and anybody can go out and buy the stock, is we actually go out and market. We advertise, and we do one thing that's going to be coming out this later on this fall, and then early into the new year is we're doing a documentary on the story of the Nisga'a and how it relates to nations royalty. Nisga'a have so many stories to tell, whether just from the nation, but also in the fact of the adversity that Indigenous people have had to overcome to be successful, like having the first modern treaty in British Columbia. So we take that record keeping and to help share this journey seriously, but it also bodes well for our shareholders because it's marketing to get the story out to any other investors. But the biggest legacy is the capacity building for particularly the young Indigenous leaders, which includes Charles here and others with Nisga'a, is that they are taking the experience to go out and do other businesses. Nisga'a said they'd like to own a mine. Well, there's another saying in the mining business, particularly junior exploration, is OPM. Spend other people's money if you're going out to explore. And accessing capital markets is the best way to do it. So, to your 2034 comment, I hope if there's an event like this, is that there are many majority Indigenous-owned and Indigenous-run natural resources companies, and it can be in the logging show, it can be in oil and gas. Natural resources bode really well for the capital markets. There's a lot of investors all around the world that are looking for money to deploy, particularly where there's a degree of certainty. And Charles always says about the Nisga'a, once you've signed a benefit agreement, you can rely on Nisga'a if you keep your word. So that certainty is really important for investors.
Do you have something to add to that? You're waiting for me to ask a question that you're going to deny I ever told you about?
Yeah. I didn't like the way you were looking at me. Okay. One of the things with us, especially, and I think it should be something with all Indigenous nations, is that when you make up your mind or think about, don't hum and haw about something too long. because when you wait for certainty, you miss an opportunity. A lot of Indigenous communities with the certainty risk is that they think too much about the risk. They don't do their due diligence in regards to what opportunities there are. But if you sit and wait too long for that opportunity, for the certainty, you miss out and somebody else grabs it and you can't get it. It's always good to be first out the door on everything that you're doing. And I believe like one of the things like we're learning from other people that have been successful, like other Indigenous people.
Northwest Connections will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK TV studios, this is Northwest Connections with your host, Robert Pictou.
Thank you for staying with us. Paralysis by analysis refers to the state of being able to make a decision because of excessive thinking, overanalyzing choices, or feeling overwhelmed by abundance of information. Let us return to the panel discussion as Charles Morven shares how his community overcame this hurdle.
Like reaching out to people like Fort Mackay, the Southern Ute Indian tribe in Colorado. We've met with them a couple of times because of what they've done. They took $51 million that they received in revenues from natural gas, built a partnership with Kinder Morgan where they were the 51% owners, and turned it into a $10 billion growth fund because they had a vision and they had a good financial plan on how they were going to grow that money. And a lot of the times when we were talking with their CEO and president, when he was talking about things with his mother, about we need to bring this back to our people. And his mother told him, sometimes you don't need to do that because it takes a lot of time, especially if something that's that great and what you're doing. He said that your people put you into those positions for a reason because they trust you to do what's in their best interest. And sometimes you don't always need to go back to the people she was telling them. And that's a lot of the things that kind of hinder our progress, is that when there's something that's so great and you continue to have all these discussions, the people that are waiting to invest in you walk away because you're taking too long to make that decision. And everyone needs to understand that. People who are showing interest in you will only show interest in you for so long if they know that you're willing to take that risk, and they're willing to risk it on you as well because you know what you're doing. And so I think as we move forward, we will just continue to knock down those doors and educate other nations and other countries on why it's so good to invest in Indigenous people. And one of the biggest groups that we're targeting too, because they have a real poor record and how they treat Indigenous people, is Australia, because Australia is pretty key because of all the mining that goes on in their area, but they treat their Indigenous people like you know, I don't want to say the word, yeah, but they understand that. They tell us they're 20 years behind, and they sure could use the education on bringing them up to speed as to where even though people think Canada hasn't had a good record, but they're far more advanced than quite a lot of other countries. But there is a lot of work to do there, and it's going to take us to be able to do that as Indigenous people. Well,
I think it's back to Grant to ask another loaded question here.
Yeah. Another loaded question. We touched on it a little bit, but I think it's worthwhile sort of revisiting the barriers side of things as you guys have gone through this process. Rob, you touched on a little bit about the experience of being, the whitest guy in the room and going, "Holy crap, are these people racist?" I've had a few of those experiences along the way too, and it's pretty shocking. Talk about what that knocking down that barrier looks like. Talk about what the perseverance of that's required to kind of get through those things, and hopefully for the next groups that are coming, the trail that's been blazed, it's a bit easier, but there certainly are some are out and out barriers, and some of them are very subtle, and those ones are actually the tougher ones sometimes.
Northwest Connections will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK TV studios, this is Northwest Connections with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome back to Northwest Connections. Collaborations between First Nations and businesses play a vital role in achieving economic reconciliation. By establishing genuine partnerships, businesses can access robust economy while First Nations foster their own economic growth and create strong, thriving communities. Let us return to the panel discussion with Rob McLeod.
It's not easy being the first. You do get the opportunity to kind of write maybe some of the rule book of what it could look like for other companies that are Indigenous majority owned subsequently. The key is to have partners that know what they're doing and that trust each other, that you have built a solid relationship. Like, some pinstripe stock promoter flies in from Bay Street, don't sign up right away. Use your network to try and find, are these good people that really care about your interests, and then work together. Charles and I, as we're raising money, and we raised $10 million for our initial offering, which for you and me, it's a lot of money. In the mining space, it actually isn't that much. And of course, it's handy to have Frank Justra in the corner office that writes a massive check to help back it. But have people that have partner with people that have the different skill sets, know where to go to get that money. And then Charles and I, we'd market together. We would do Zoom presentations together and stuff to help tell the story, and get good bankers that can help you out. And they're out there. There's bankers that make a living by helping you raise money, and you pay them a commission. There's already the infrastructure out there that my uncle was a stock promoter in the 1980s and 90s. It's still the same. There's a lot of people out there that are looking to help you deploy capital. It's out there. It's available. There's billions and billions of dollars, and Indigenous people need to be part of this aspect of the economy. Indigenous people need to be owning and running public companies. And there's lots of reasons for it. There's liquidity. It's easier to attract investors because of that liquidity component. And there's the opportunity to build really big businesses. You look at Canfor, it's a public company. Is there any reason why there shouldn't be a majority Indigenous-owned public company in the logging business? No, there isn't at all. You go partner with the Cree. You could go partner back east in Quebec. Indigenous people also need to be working together, and also if you have a treaty and treaty trust in your own money, deploy it to support other Indigenous business. And one of the best ways to do that is in the public markets. So I really hope that, and we're saying this, two of my colleagues are right now, they're in Sudbury, and they're saying the same thing to nations in Ontario. Access capital markets. There's a lot of debt out there. There's so much cheap government debt that's available to help support businesses. The other key component is venture capital. So that money is out there. Get out there and grab it.
Yeah, thank you. And just one thing, and going back to something that Bill Lomax said in his opening as the keynote speaker this morning in regards to the James Bay Cree. And one of my, I think I was still in early high school, grade 8, and I picked up a book I read on Billy Diamond. He was the James Bay Cree leader at that time when they were having the fight with Quebec on that dam. And the book's called Chief, the Fearless Vision of Billy Diamond. And all the things that he accomplished for his people in such a short time before he handed the reins over to Matthew Kuncombe. And about taking opportunities and when you have an idea and just doing it rather than thinking about it. And a lot of their companies that they had at that time are still running, like the Air Quebec, they call it, the airlines that they have in James Bay, and the boat company that they started back in the 70s. And one of the things that I really got out of the book is that they mentioned the Nisga'a Nation and the support for them when they were having that fight, and having one of our leaders attend their conference to have the Nisga'a support there, late Rod Robinson. And so the Nisga'a Nation has been supporting other nations since the Calder case, or even before. And the late Sophie Pierre not late Sophie Pierre, she's still around, I'm sorry about that. She mentioned in a talk on Radio Canada, on CBC, about the Nisga''s generosity to share their knowledge with other Indigenous nations. And that's one of the things why when we're doing this project, why we want to build that capacity, not just for us, but for others as well. Because that's how Nisga'a have been since probably contact, or even before. We shared a lot of our resources with other nations that needed it. And so we're just going to continue to do that as we move forward. And so I just wanted to finish with that.
Northwest Connections will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK TV studios, this is Northwest Connections with your host, Robert Pictou.
Self-governance empowers First Nations to create government structures that embody their distinct cultures, traditions, and languages. This enables them to develop robust, self-reliant, and thriving communities according to their own values, thereby realizing the commitment to self-determination. In this final segment of Northwest Connection, Charles Morven shares how his nation is moving towards self-governance.
Charles Morven, Nisga'a Lisims Government, Secretary-Treasurer, and lead on all industry projects for the Nisga'a Nation. It's about building capacity for Indigenous people and getting into things that are more than just jobs, getting into the capital markets to raise your own capital, and not to be uncertain about making that step. Like, be willing to take that calculated risk, do your due diligence, and believe in who you are, in yourselves as Indigenous people, that you're capable of doing things when you put your mind to it. Well, co-designing your future is like knowing where you want to go, like building a financial plan, especially in regards to business, like knowing like the end result of where you want to be when you're all done the work, and also bringing in people with expertise that are willing to work with you until you build that capacity to be able to do the things that you want to do, and getting more people introduced into like capital markets, like in our presentation, like knowing what those are about, getting educated on them, and knowing that it's not a bad thing to do, like knowing the fluctuation of markets, and that how we need to be patient a lot in moving forward, and just being able to know that you're more than just a truck driver, or not that they aren't good jobs, but there's more things out there for you than just that. In our discussions when we first started, like our partner now, Frank Justra, like who started a royalty company, wanted to know what are our plans for our future and how we wanted to get there and what we needed and able to fulfill that dream of ours. And so we talked to him about what we wanted to do, like to be a real full self-governing nation where we don't have to rely on Canada or to be accountable to Canada, but only to ourselves, and that we're capable of doing that. We just need a good vision on how we get there, and we need people that are willing to work with us and able to achieve our goal, that believe in what we're trying to do, that have the same vision and the same principles and values. Because it allows for us to have that free discussion, to say what's really happening, to call a spade in regards to people who come into our area, to extract resources from us. Because BC at one point, maybe still is, contributed 72% of British Columbia's economy and only received 6% back. That's not just including the Indigenous people, but it's everyone within our area. And so there's opportunities for us to bring those issues to the table and see a path forward together, because we live together now, and we're going to continue to live together into the future, like the non-Indigenous and Indigenous communities. So it's important to have events like this so we could work on our commonalities and work on them together.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Northwest Connections. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but the connection of his mind and heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our immensity within. I'm Robert Pichtel.